Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, chapter 890 of One Piece is out. I know a lot of you were expecting the new chapter to drop after the new year, and this is true for the official chapter released in Weekly Shonen Jump. However, the leaks for this chapter dropped really early. So if you haven't checked out that chapter yet, I suggest that you do so because I will be spoiling you. Now that you have, let's begin. Oh man guys, these spoilers had a lot of people triggered. This chapter, in its spoiler form, was extremely controversial. But, you know, this happens sometimes, right? The spoilers, text only, do not convey what it is that Oda really wants to convey. The One Piece manga is not supposed to be written as a transcript. It's not supposed to be read as a transcript. It's supposed to be read with a combination of pictures and full dialogue. So a lot of people end up triggering themselves for no reason once they actually read the actual chapter. Now, I don't know if that's the case for this chapter. I haven't talked with anyone or Jackson being down. Just kind of sucks because usually it's through Or Jackson that I find out what the community perspective is about the chapter. But for me, after actually reading the chapter, I don't think that there's any reason to complain. I think Oda made himself very clear. But let's actually talk about what is it that people do not like. And so I think that most people enjoyed the action of this chapter. I think that most people would enjoy, usually, these Straw Hats doing awesome things. No, the thing that really has people irritated is that Big Mom is a Yonko and these Straw Hats are dealing with her. In fact, they're making Big Mom look bad. Firstly, Jinbei was able to partially resist Big Mom's strike. Chopper the very same. Jinbei then came back after getting hit by Big Mom, seemingly mostly not damaged, and knocked her off the ship. And then on top of this, Zeus was just completely fodderized by Brook. Even Zeus said this specifically during the fight. Before, when Brook was fighting Big Mom and the homies, Zeus said, "You couldn't even give me a single scratch." And then this time Brook proceeds to cut Zeus in half. And then of course, lastly, Nami used Zeus once again to create a massive lightning bolt which struck Big Mom. So asking the question, was Big Mom fodderized in this chapter? Yes, absolutely, I agree. Fodderized for her station in the New World. Being a Yonko with the Strat crew doing as much to her as they did, Big Mom looks weak for what she should be. But does this actually mean that Big Mom is weak? Does this mean that the Straw Hat crew is just way stronger than we perceive them to be? Should we just wait for Jinbei to take down Big Mom and Perospero and Smoothie, and then go back into the Mirror World and then defeat Katakuri? Is Jinbei going to make himself the new captain of the Straw Hat crew because he's just that strong? Of course not. If you're reading this chapter with any understanding of what the little details in the story are implying, then you know that despite what it was that we perceived at the end of the chapter, and I'm guilty of this as well, I thought this as well. I thought at the end of the last chapter when Big Mom had the flaming hair and then jumped onto Zeus and landed on the Straw Hat ship, that perhaps she was just as strong as she's always been, maybe even stronger, but this chapter essentially confirmed that Big Mom is significantly weaker. In fact, I would go so far as to say that that was one of the major points that Oda wanted to accomplish with this chapter. He wanted to tell us, yo guys, Big Mom, yeah, she's not at Yonko level at the moment. She's weakening. And it's not as though this is out of left wing, right? This is something that Oda has been setting up from the last few chapters. Last chapter, you'll remember that before Zeus and Prometheus arrived, Big Mom was huffing, Big Mom was kneeled over, she looked tired. And honestly, we were all confused by what happened towards the end of the chapter. It seemed as though Big Mom was rejuvenated. Maybe she was a little bit by the presence of Zeus and Prometheus. Maybe she found some amount of energy. But honestly, our perception of the end of the last chapter, what Oda set up, was fake news. And I know that I'm not the only person who bought it because King of Lightning made a video specifically about it. Big Mom seemed like she was at full strength. In fact, she seemed more intimidating, but from the very beginning of this chapter, Oda reiterated that Big Mom is so hungry that she's becoming skinny. She's more skinny today than she has been for many years, and Big Mom specifically states, again in the first page, that she's starving. So how exactly does starvation affect your perceived power level, or your actual power level? Well, just look at Luffy. Whenever Luffy starves, is he as strong as he would be? Of course not. No, he's not. So in the case of Big Mom, she's getting weaker. This is what makes sense. You just kind of have to ignore the trick Oda played at the end of last chapter. And so then the question becomes, if it's again reiterated, we further understand that Big Mom is starving and that she's weaker, just how much weaker is she? Obviously, she started off at Yonko level, so it wasn't necessarily guaranteed that these strats would be able to do anything against her. But Oda decided to make her weak enough to allow these strats to deflect her, at least temporarily. And guys, that's just the facts at hand. These are undisputable. The strats are not stronger than necessarily we gave them credit for. Big Mom is not weaker than we gave her credit for at her strongest. She's just weaker right now. And the reasoning behind this is completely justifiable. We can see this in the reaction of Big Mom's children every time these strats do something to harm her. This is completely outside of their expectations, something that they have never seen before. And maybe even we can see this at the end of this chapter, after Nami was able to hit Big Mom with Zeus's lightning bolt. You know, I don't know if this is fake news or real news or whatever it is, but Big Mom seems more damaged than she would be otherwise. She doesn't seem unblemished. But you know, I think the real irony of this whole situation is that these strats currently are making this cake or bringing this cake to Big Mom in order to save themselves. They think to themselves that if we don't give Big Mom this cake, then Big Mom will kill us. But honestly, the way that it's going, Big Mom will die if they don't give her some kind of food. And she absolutely won't eat anything but the cake. So honestly, if these strats played cake keep away from Big Mom for the next few hours, legitimately, I do believe that it's possible for these strats to be able to defeat Big Mom in a fight. By that point in time, she will have grown so weak that anyone could possibly defeat her, Yonko title or not. But of course, I think that we know that this will not happen. Sanji would not allow this to happen. If Sanji's backstory and Sanji's initial arc, the Barate arc, told us anything, it's that he doesn't care if he feeds the enemy. He feeds those that are hungry. Big Mom is hungry. Sanji will feed her. And I think that we can assume that once she eats something, and then she would be rejuvenated. She would be back at Yonko level strength. But you know, I do want to throw in a situation, not in this video. I'm going to make this video very soon, an entire video about it. But I was talking to somebody on Twitter, and there's some possibility, right, that maybe Big Mom shouldn't be fed this cake. I'm going to go ahead and leave it off here, but if Big Mom shouldn't be fed the cake, but Sanji wants to feed her the cake because she's starving, could create some interesting situation. But let's talk more about what people don't like about this situation, right? Some people will accept that Big Mom is weaker, right? She hasn't eaten, she's starving, she's weaker, this makes sense, but they have a problem with it because they view it as a kind of plot convenience. And so a lot of people see what happened in this last chapter and they think, okay, what really changed in this last chapter, right? At the end of last chapter, right, Big Mom was on the ship, and at the end of this chapter, Big Mom is chasing the ship. So it's essentially pretty much the same exact situation. Did Oda merely make Big Mom weaker just so that these strats could potentially escape? Is that the only reason why this exists? And I'll admit, if that were to be true, if the only reason why Big Mom is growing weaker is just so that the strats can escape, I think I would have a problem with it too, but I really don't think so. First off, this entire fight that these strats are having with Big Mom right now is contrived. Oda contrived the situation. He easily could have avoided it. He could have made Sanji reach the strats faster, so that Sanji would already be there with the cake, none of this interaction necessary. Also could have made it so that the Big Mom pirates did not trap the strats, did not catch up to the strats before Sanji arrived. So Oda did not need to write this into the story, he chose to. I do not believe that Big Mom growing weaker was used as plot convenience. I believe that Big Mom growing weaker was used to develop the plot further. I do not think that Oda is going to take Big Mom growing weaker and then just throw it out the window in the coming chapters. I believe that it will become integral to the future of the Whole Cake Island arc, where Oda wants to take the arc. And so let's start with the events in those last chapter. Ignoring all of the exciting action, what really occurred? What actually happened that was different from what we have seen before? And the answer here is Zeus. The Nami capturing Zeus was essentially the entire point of this chapter, aside from revealing or emphasizing Big Mom growing weaker. And so it seems as though Oda used Big Mom growing weaker in order for these strats to be able to take Zeus. One thing that I thought was really interesting about this chapter is that Zeus said before Brook could not even scratch him, but in this chapter Brook literally cut him in half. I think that as Big Mom grows weaker, so too does her homies. So yeah, Big Mom growing weaker helped these strats achieve this goal. It's interesting too because these strats literally said that their objective was Zeus. And so we need to ask why. Why was this important to incorporate in the story? What role will Zeus have in the future? And so as to me, there seems as though there's 3 possibilities, with a huge likelihood of Oda choosing something that we have not even considered. The first of which is to use Zeus as some kind of transportation. Luffy even mentioned beforehand how he wanted to ride Zeus. It's possible that for some reason or other it's necessary to ride Zeus to go somewhere, maybe meet up with Sanji, do something completely unexpected. I really don't know. The second possibility is that the Strats continually use Zeus to keep Big Mom at bay. Essentially, this endless chase will continue on further, and the justification for this occurring is Zeus's lightning bolts. I really hope that this isn't the case. As I said earlier, Oda contrived this entire situation in the first place. If this was all that was going to happen and the Strats are just going to continue to run from Big Mom and there's no other really important events aside from this, then Oda could have just made Sanji arrive sooner. Or made the Strats ship not get caught. It's literally the same thing occurring, but one is more concise than the other. This endless chase is just, it's not necessary to me. It doesn't seem necessary to me unless these Strats are literally going to put Big Mom near death. If we've assumed that she's growing weaker, if we also assume that Zeus's lightning bolt actually did damage to her in this last chapter, considering that, Brook couldn't do damage to Zeus beforehand, but now he can slice him in half. Maybe Big Mom can take damage now, so maybe it becomes important in the future of the story that these Strats are literally lightning bolt after lightning bolt after lightning bolt, and Big Mom could be killed by them. Again, this depends upon where Oda wants to take the story. I think a lot of people would not like that because of how they perceive Big Mom's role in this arc and in the future. But this is really only justifiable if Big Mom isn't going to be an enemy. Essentially, we should have pity on Big Mom. This would lead into some thoughts that I've discussed in the past, such as, a Buster Call being called on Whole Cake Island, or Stussy of CP0 doing something. Essentially, Big Mom growing weaker, going near death, the Big Mom pirates become very susceptible to somebody actually defeating them, and the Strats would then step in and save them all. This could even tie back into Sanji needing to feed those that are starving. Sanji badly wants to give Big Mom this cake, but somebody tries to prevent him from doing that. And so in order to feed the hungry, Sanji must defeat the enemy. Meanwhile, Big Mom can actually be defeated if she doesn't get this cake. Or if she doesn't eat something, period. But anyway, guys, other than this, the only other possibility that I see for Zeus and why it was necessary for Nami to capture him and make him her servant is so that he can look around the ship and confirm that they don't have the cake. It was re-emphasized in the beginning of this chapter that Big Mom will attack Perospero if they don't have the cake. And essentially she just refused to believe them. So maybe she needs somebody like Zeus, made of her own soul, to essentially tell her, Big Mom, the cake is not in the ship. But I'll be honest with you guys, the situation just doesn't seem right to me. To have Zeus look around the ship, the cake isn't there, then, get onto the deck, Big Mom is chasing them, Big Mom, the cake isn't here, your son, he lied to you. And then she goes and attacks Perospero. It just doesn't feel right. This goes back into the territory that is really hard to describe, but in this kind of situation, if it does happen, if that is in fact the Strats' plan to convince Big Mom that they don't have the cake, then I would expect Big Mom's reaction to be different from what has been specifically set up. I think you've taken all of the tension and the drama out of the circumstance of Big Mom attacking Perospero by approaching it in this way. But let me just wrap up my thoughts here, guys, real fast. The Big Mom Pirates, they are a shadow of what they started this arc as. Remember that Big Mom is weak now, but she will get progressively more weak as the time goes on, as she continues to starve. That's what makes the most sense to me. And so we've talked before about the time, 1 a.m. in the morning being important. Maybe that's the time in which Sanji ends up meeting again with the Straw Hats. So that would be essentially in 3 hours. 3 more hours of starving. The top tiers of the Big Mom Pirates are steadily losing. Your thoughts right now should be that it is possible for the Big Mom Pirates to actually get defeated. But you should keep in mind that these Strats will not defeat them in this way. It's not fitting. But an antagonistic group might try and take advantage of the Big Mom Pirates' weakness and try to kill Big Mom. Capone is possible of something like this, although I don't think it'd be Capone. The Vinsmokes are capable of trying something like this. CP0 and Stussy, or the other underworld emperors. Honestly, I think that the story is, if Big Mom is actually getting weaker, I think the story is moving forward in such a way for these strats to save the Big Mom pirates. And I really think that Oda is going to use Big Mom's weakness to justify this. You know, this is something that I've been talking about for a while, but usually when I speculate this, I speculate in such a way that the strats will save the Big Mom pirates from Big Mom herself. But if Big Mom is actually growing weaker, then the strats could save the Big Mom pirates from somebody else. But yeah, let's talk about some other things that intrigue me from this last chapter. And so as you guys will know, I thought that this next chapter would be Big Mom actually attacking Perospero. And the beginning setup of this chapter was leading directly into something like that occurring. But the twist that Oda decided to play here is that Big Mom refused to believe that Perospero was lying. And I really think that Big Mom's choice of words is really intriguing. Jinbei tells her there's no cake on this ship, and Big Mom says, don't be ridiculous, there's no way that's true, because my son said that it's here. If it's not here, then I'll have to take my eldest son's life with these hands. Don't you dare call my son a liar. A lot of people are fixated on the bad things that Big Mom does, but they don't take a moment to try and understand her. Why is her son potentially being a liar a big deal to her? This also ties back to other things that we have seen Big Mom do. It sort of helps justify part of her motivation. She does not like liars. Going back to Fishman Island, why was she going to destroy Fishman Island? Because they had an agreement that they didn't live up to. Fishman Island would be liars. I really think that Big Mom believes that friends and family would not lie to each other. Going back to Big Mom's own backstory, her parents dropped her off in Elbaf and told her that they would return, but they never did. So her family then would be liars. I think that this shaped Big Mom's future perspective on liars. Now I don't want to get this confused, right? Because Big Mom herself set up plans. She lied to the Vinsmoke, but her and the Vinsmoke were never friends, they were enemies. But to have your own son lie to you, now that's something completely different. There really seems to be 3 triggers that Big Mom has, 3 things that she cannot forgive when it comes to her own crew and her own family. They cannot lie to her, they cannot betray her, and they cannot abandon her. I really think that all of these things can relate to Big Mom's own past. And because of their effect on her life, she cannot forgive these things. Essentially, if her family or her friends were to do these things to her, then they're no longer her family or her friends. And I really think that you see it clearly in this last chapter. She is desperate to believe that Perospero did not lie to her. The cake must be there. Because he is her family. He is her eldest son. Of course he wouldn't lie to me. Family don't do that. And just by understanding this, guys, don't you feel as though Big Mom's situation is just a little bit more sad than perhaps you previously thought? She does not want to kill her son. She's desperate to believe that he is telling the truth because she doesn't want to do it. Guys, I'm still waiting for this reveal, but I really think Big Mom loves her family. She just has specific rules which define a family that aren't necessarily the norm. I think that there's more that can be said, but let's move on to the next thing, which is that Perospero even brings it up in this last chapter. He cannot believe that she remembered her own threat. He thought that he could get away with it. He asked, just how conscious is she? I think, guys, it's about time that I need to give up on my thought that Big Mom's rage will ever be the same as it was initially. Remember, in chapter 829, when Big Mom first went on a rage, we first learned of it. Big Mom specifically asked Charlotte Moscato, "Who are you?" Moscato then goes on to reply, "Mama, it's me, it's your son Moscato." But Big Mom never recognized him. I keep waiting for Big Mom's rage to go back to this, but honestly it is progressing in the opposite direction. Big Mom is becoming more and more conscious. Perhaps this is what the Big Mom Pirates were referring to with an unknown Big Mom. She has never raged for this long. So we're in completely new territory. Maybe it's possible that as time goes on, Big Mom becomes more aware of the things that she is doing. And I think that this would be hugely important if that were to be the case, because as we've talked about before, Big Mom previously never even knew that she was in a rage. She doesn't recall the events that actually occur. When she raged before, Moscato and Opera died, and she didn't even bat an eyelash, but now we can see her being very hesitant. I don't want to kill Perospero. A long time ago, we went on to speculate that Big Mom is never told, even by the members of her own family, of what it is that she does when she rages. She may not even know that she rages in the first place. So the process of becoming more conscious can make her more aware, firstly of her rages, and secondly, what she has done previously when she rages. This could be huge. If Big Mom's core values are that family do not lie to each other, they do not betray each other, and they do not abandon each other, then Big Mom has been a walking contradiction the entire time because of these rages that she cannot control and she is unaware of. Something like this sets up Big Mom wanting a cure. And as we've talked about before, Big Mom's rages are eerily similar to the children in Punk Hazard, and we have Chopper here in this arc. But yeah guys, that's pretty much all I wanted to say today. Obviously there's probably still going to be people mad about this afterwards, but if you just take a moment and just think, Big Mom is weaker than she would normally be, I really don't see any issues with this chapter whatsoever. It was really exciting, and these strads did cool things. I like that. And I guess we will wait to see what the true impact of this chapter will be, what it is that it sets up, and how important it is in the coming weeks. But as always, let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree or disagree and why. Just share your thoughts. Like the video if you liked the video. Dislike the video if you disliked the video. Make sure to subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.